burying our former president.
I still went to work today, so.
You guys are really private people. We don't want to observe public holiday.
Yes, sir. So are these streaming capabilities on StreamYard, yeah?
So what?
The streaming capability where you can like stream from Zoom to like other platforms, or is it like integrated in Zoom?
Okay, so from Zoom, I'm streaming to Facebook. All right, we are live
Oh,
already.
yes,
We're
sir.
live on Facebook, and so we can go. Welcome again to tonight's session. Thank you for yesterday. And we trust that we're going to have swell time today. Ladies and gentlemen, we are still on the conversation of Nike is my wife and Ronke is my life. I don't want two wives. What do I do? Like we said yesterday, most people only find the right person after they're already married. At least so they said. And the conversation tonight is to find out why is it so? Would that be possible? Is it a reality? And we're going to keep looking at it and seeing what lessons we can learn from it. Like I said yesterday, the lifespan of a marriage, it is possible for attraction to wane. It is possible for emotional connection, for that spark to disappear. And then it does appear that you suddenly realize that there is someone else that is in your space that brings the glow, and you're confused. Should you go ahead with this person? Should we stay with what we have? And the question I want to ask Pastor Victor tonight. Remember, Pastor Victor is joining me all the way from Lagos. Pastor Victor is a journalist. He's a ghostwriter. Pastor Victor is a forex trader, and he's also a clergyman. So tonight, I want to ask from Pastor Victor, as a person, would you go for love or would you go for respect?
That's really, really tricky. I would say my first answer that will come from instinct is if it's possible to have both. But if I'm faced with a situation where I have to choose one or another, I can almost predict that I would probably go for respect because I think it's easier to, for me, I don't know about any other person, but for me, it's easier to um, get or grow in attraction, grow in affinity for someone than to be in a space where I already like a person and then I'm faced with so much disrespect. Because no matter how deep the love I have for that person is, if I'm being faced with disrespect consistently, it's going to reduce it to nothing. So yeah, I think I'll probably go for respect and then hope that I grow in love. But ultimate case, I would prefer if I have both.
Because you see, it's possible to later develop a spark.
Yes, sir.
It can be challenging to later develop respect. You know that, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So it's easier to gamble with love or emotions than to gamble with respect
That
for
was
the man,
respect.
right?
Believe so.
But the other question will be, why do we lose the spark in our relationships?
Hmm. That's also very tricky. I think I'm going to speak from a very personal standpoint. I had to learn by experience that these things don't just happen because I'm someone who observed from a seeming external perspective, I've seen like observing the relationship that existed between my parents and many other people who were like models. It looked so seamless, it looked so natural that it's created this anticipation of a fairy tale kind of story. And so I had to intentionally learn a sense of responsibility in keeping the spark alive in order not to have fallen into that trap of being in something so beautiful where the sparks are flying everywhere. And then after a little while, everything fades. So I think it's the lack of sense of responsibility that causes that because you come into the relationship, it's like things are moving of its own accord. You don't have to force things to happen. It just does, of course, for those who start a relationship on the basis of all the emotional sparks. So it's like everything is happening by itself. Um, they don't anticipate that a day would come when these things will not flow by itself no more, where you would have to adopt a sense of responsibility, where you would have to do it whether you feel like it or not. And that sometimes you would have to manually drive it in order for it to get to that point where it flows by itself. Yeah, so I think that's what happens. So the expectation is for things to be going on autopilot, and then all of a sudden you realize that things are no longer flowing as smoothly as before, and then you just I literally know a couple who got divorced on the basis of um nothing remaining in their interaction except friendship. When I saw that reason, it didn't make any sense to me. They said we don't have anything else, we're just friends that when we got to that point, we said, okay, there's no basis to stay in this marriage. So we'll live in the same house, we'll co-parent, or we can probably see other people. There's no longer any emotional connection, just friendship. And it was really weird because these are people who they interact well. If you see both of them conversing, you see that they interact well. They have learned to parent together, but then they did not learn to live together because they expected the same things they felt at the beginning to just keep being there. The moment it wasn't there, that spark, they just decided to like let it go and then go their separate ways. So yeah, yes, I think that's how it works.
So friendship is not enough to keep a marriage. Friendship is not enough reason
Uh,
to remain in a marriage. In some marriages, the friendship doesn't even exist. They're just cohabiting. For the people you just referred to, there is even friendship and they still had to
so
leave. That's amazing. It means that there is also a value problem here. People
yes.
tend to have very funny values, very funny things that bring them into a relationship, certain expectations that are not realistic because nothing in life is expected to consistently remain on the flow without interjections that will now require you to re-engineer, recalibrate, reposition, refocus, and then you now bounce back again. And most times, when you bounce back again, it's even sweeter than where you started from. And so, for people to check out of a relationship just because they found out that that magical feeling, and trust me, there is something magical about romantic love that people want to be permanent.
Uh,
And once that magical feeling does no more exist, people seem not to know that there is a part of that. Yes, I agree. There is a part of that that comes on its own. You just started feeling it. But the question here is, can that romantic feeling, can that romantic spark be calibrated? Can it be re-engineered? Can it be reactivated? Can it be revived? Do you think it can be?
yes, sir. I think it's highly possible, and the motivation for stepping into a relationship in the first place can be used as the basis for that spark. So almost like it can be used as the lighter or the matchbox that is used to reignite the passion. Because sometimes we tend to be caught up in the moment, and then we forget the basis for which we got into a um, relationship-like structure in the first place. For example, there are certain things that got me, I would use the word attracted, whether it's in a romantic way or just you having an affinity for someone and then wanting to be close to that person. But there's something that got you attracted to that person in the first place. There is something upon which that whole spark was hinged. Many times what happens is that we just get so busy that we lose track, or we get so engrossed in what we feel like are the shortcomings of this person that we forget all of the beautiful things that made us to get attracted in the first place, that made us to decide to be with this person in the first place. Is it how good their character is? Is it how physically attractive they are? There's definitely something that pulled you in the first place. And sometimes you might be so engrossed that you forget it completely. So I think one of the ways to reignite that spark is to remind yourself again the reasons why this person was your choice in the first place. What was that amazing thing about this person that made you to be so in love at the beginning or at some point in that relationship? Is it the way he talks? Is it the way she looks? What's the and I think one of the things that will help us to be in a safe space is to ensure that the basis, the foundation of our affinity is not on things that are very transient. So those things are going to be bonuses because if like some people would always say, get attracted to a person's soul, so that in the transition of the physical body, you can still find them pretty attractive. Yeah, because it makes no
Let me
sense to
let
get
me
married
let
to.
me let me let me hold you on that.
Okay, okay, sir.
When you say get attracted to somebody's soul, break it down. What
Okay,
are the tangents that you will be attracted to, and you
yes,
say
sir.
you are attracted to somebody's soul?
Okay, I think the soul, it has to do with all of the emotional components, the um mental faculties, the because it's generally everything that has to do with the component of a person that is not physical. Yeah, because it's like the transitionary pod between like the body and the spirit. Yeah, so that's like the realm of meaning. So it's like you are, for me, I always say this. I'm not saying, yes, if you know you have an affinity towards a certain kind of persons, that can be the additions. Yeah, but the primary attraction, for example, a person can know that they are highly mentally stimulated. And so that becomes a primary basis for the whatever interaction it is that they have with their partner. So the idea is not to um, lay hold on anything that is transitionary, because even that can be lost. Somebody can hit their head on the wall, and then that extreme brilliance fades out in a bit. So I think there are really no permanence. But when it talks about the soul, it's the emotion, the logic, the everything that has to do with their reasoning. Yeah, the way they behave, the way they interpret life. Yes, sir. So basically,
Okay, so you are looking at behavioral quantities.
yes, sir.
You're looking at behavioral quantities, not necessarily physical quantities.
Yes, sir. And then I think one of those behavioral quantities will be their preference for you,
Okay.
because for me, it's like a mantra to choose who chooses me. So it's more than just being with somebody who you are really, because it's choice eventually that keeps us in whatever structure we are in. And so if someone's choice is as strong as mine, then we should be able to weather whatever storm comes our way, because there are definitely going to be storms.
All right. As I listen to you, a lot is going on in my mind. Now,
Yes, sir.
when you, when we, whichever way we try to deal with this,
Yes, sir.
it was Plato that said that marriage is like a ladder.
Mm,
He said, he said that the two vertical stands are the male and the female, the man and the woman, whereas the rungs that
yes,
hold
sir.
them together represent, he said, the several factors that attracted them, that are
Mm,
of mutual interest, that keep
yes,
them together. Plato said that when the more the number of the factors that bring them together, the more they are likely to stay together. Plato said, on the rungs of that ladder, the lowest, which is almost always the first that brings people together, is physical attraction. Plato said that at the highest of that rung is unconditional, selfless, sacrificial love. Plato said that if you do not have sufficient mutual interests, then the lifespan of that relationship can be predictable. But the more the mutual interest, the more sustainable a relationship. Incidentally, many of these mutual interests are going to be transient. The way they smile, the way they make me feel, a lot of those intangibles. Now, the question for me and to you then is, if we are going to focus on the intangibles, and if you say those intangibles include behavioral quantities, is it possible? Is it possible for behavior to change? I love this person because they respect me. Now, for certain reasons, I am feeling disrespected. I love this person because they listen to me. For certain reasons, they are stop listening to me. I love this person because they are pliable, they are adaptable, they are understanding, they are compatible. Is it also possible for relationships to graduate to a point where even these non-transient qualities begin to diminish? Maybe. Sometimes it is my own behavior that is affecting their behavior. But is it possible for even the permanent quantities to also wane, which now affects the emotional connection? Is it possible?
Yes, sir. It's definitely also possible. And I would say it has happened, like it happens every now and then also. So the ultimate formula would always be to be so intentional that you attempt to recalibrate. Yeah, because yes, it can happen. People can just wake up and then lose the respect. For example, they respect you and maybe you think it's just natural, or you don't know that it has to do with your ability to provide. And then the day you lose the ability to provide, then you realize that the respect was actually just a front. Yeah, so it's highly possible. So yes, sir, I really do believe that even the intangible qualities can actually cease. So this will bring us to the point where we would say that it's really just, and that's another thing. I think mentioning the intangible quality is trying to pinpoint a definition that is looking very hard, because the idea is that you're choosing somebody wholly. You're choosing, like I say to my friends all the time, I'm like, if a person is in a relationship, or sorry, you're married already. I don't know about relationships, but I know when you're married, if you are asked what your spec is, the mere fact that you chose a person and then you got married to that person, the person automatically transitions into your spec. The idea of having somebody else or having a definition of a spec that is outside the framework of your partner automatically gives room for all of this secondary, whatever it is that happens. So the idea is they become the definition of your desires intentionally, because it's not like it's many of these things don't happen magically. You can see somebody with a quality that looks like it's outweighing your partner, but the very choice of that person means you continuously superimpose the qualities of your partner over whoever it is that is looking like they're competing. You distance, you remind yourself. So I think it's a very continuous process, because it really does not matter what the qualities are, it can cease one day. Whether it's tangible, whether it's intangible, a day can come where you wake up. Yes. So yes.
So at least one of the things we have achieved, most times when we counsel people before they get married, we are inclined to tell them, make sure you are attracted to qualities in the person that are not transient. But at the end of the day, even the qualities that you think are permanent, things happen.
Yes, sir.
And the purpose
Life
of this
happens.
conversation is to encourage people to realize that when it is no longer working, there's something you can do instead of just running away. Because at the end of the
Yeah.
day, when you run away and move to the next relationship, I have found out that if there is a test you are supposed to pass, when you jump relationships and move to the next relationship, the probability is that you will meet that same test in the next relationship, and oftentimes it is even a higher test.
Yes,
Now,
sir.
let me take this conversation to the next level. What is that next level? When a relationship begins to wane or collapse or begin to disintegrate, one of the first things that disappears is eye contact.
Mm. Yes, sir.
So when the lady wants to talk to her husband, she's no more looking at him in the eyes. When the guy wants to talk to the woman, he's no more looking at her in the eyes. They're always looking at somewhere else because they are avoiding that eye connection. They are avoiding that contact. Looking into somebody's eyes is a very powerful quantity, critical for emotional connection.
Mm.
I keep telling people one of the reasons why I am of the school of thought that even when a relationship begins without that emotional spark, it is not impossible for that spark to be created. Because if I look into your eyes continuously for 4 minutes, there is an intimacy, there is a valve, it unlocks, it activates, there is something it does. It is why it is believed that nearness can prompt, activate fondness.
Mm. Yes, sir.
Now, if nearness, communication, contact, looking into somebody's eyes can spark off fondness, don't you think that for a relationship that started with the spark, even if the spark is lost, if the partners can be intentional to look into each other's eyes, it's difficult to look into your eyes and tell you lies,
Yes.
even though human beings are
Actually,
getting more wicked now.
tell your
so,
pathological.
so it means that there are things we can do to reactivate the spark. But first of all, there must be an intention, a desire, a willingness to reconnect. But if
Yes,
we
sir.
value Ronke over and above Nike, and we don't want to do anything about Ronke, Nike, then we have all the excuse to want to abandon our relationship and move to the next relationship. Because if I adjust my behavior, the lady that disrespects me can respect me again. If she
That's true.
adjusts her behavior, my love that is shifting to somebody else can come back to her. So behavioral adjustment can spark off and rekindle and re-engineer lost love. It means that there is something people can do about it if they want to do something about it. You agree with that, right?
Yes, sir.
Now, that is so important for people to take note of. So, wherever you are, if you're listening to this broadcast, I'm recommending speak truth to yourself. Look at your love life, look at your relationship, look at that relationship that you think is going down. One of the things that is probably missing today is eye contact. The reason is because you've given up, you've made up your mind. I'm not going to do this again, I'm out. But if both of you can make up your mind to go back to the things, there are lifestyles, there are behaviors you have abandoned. There are
Yes,
things
sir.
you were doing that you have stopped doing. If we all can go back to find out what those things are, it will make a lot of difference. All right. Let's take this to the next level. Yesterday, you raised issues concerning identity. A situation where people have not discovered who they are. before they went in search of a partner. Because people have not discovered who they are, they are not able to recognize, identify who they need. So they allow their emotions to define their choice. And the problem with emotions is that it can be sparked off with every new person. See, emotions are so funny.
True.
A girl that dresses carelessly with her boobs showing, once there are chemical reactions in a man, he gets attracted. It creates a spark. It is why I keep saying, you see, this spark people are talking about is not rocket science. Spark can be activated effortlessly. You just need to know the buttons to press. But when somebody has not identified who he is and what he needs, he now becomes controlled by these things that spark anyhow. It's like put spark plug in a car. Once negative and positive meet, there is a spark. You begin to be impacted by sparks everywhere you turn. And you begin to make relationship decisions based on those sparks. The reason most times is because of an identification problem. I'd like you to talk some more about that, like you were trying to do yesterday.
Oh, thank you very much, sir. So I think the basis of all of these conversations, like whenever I pick on this particular point, I always wrap it up by saying that there is a clear definition of God as the one who knows our true desires. And as such, I give a very vital example, and I'm going to like pick on that point. Like you've said, and like I've said, and we've had conversations about from yesterday, it's actually possible to be with a person and then assume that there's no emotional connection because your definitions are strictly by called your cultural identity. And I'm going to give a practical example so that it makes a lot of sense. When I wanted to like make a meaning of the whole dating scene, because of course my dad is a pastor and I was born in church, and so several of these things were basically out of our reach. Yeah, out of our reach, not because we couldn't do them, but because we didn't see them fit. Yeah, so at the instance of wanting to begin the whole dating thing, or like, trying to like make meaning out of it, one of the first things I realized was that I was looking out for a particular set of women. And I'm going to make it plain. I just realized it was usually a lot of ladies who are thick, who are fair complexion. There's just a particular framework of women and that was just it. It was just the physical components. There was really nothing more than that. Until a particular day where I had to ask myself a question. I asked myself, I was like, how did you come about these definitions? And then when I sat down to think about it, I realized it was because of all the conversations that I would usually have with certain guys. And then everybody is saying, this is the type of woman you should have because of this, because of that. And then hearing it repeatedly, that became my definition. Not because there was any sense of purpose, not because there was anything beyond just being indoctrinated by what they said. And because these are the group of friends that I would usually relate with at that point, and I know that whoever I'm getting married to, I'm going to introduce them to her, or I'm going to introduce her to them. I might really want to be with this person, but then the mere thought of the fact that she's not going to fit into the popular narrative, I'll say, Kai, let's turn this one down. And then I would go for the one who fits the general narrative, not minding if, there's a alignment of purpose or whatever it is. So I think it's very important for us to slow down and ask ourselves what our true desires are, what the qualities of a partner for us is supposed to be. Because I say this all the time, if you don't know what brand of car you are, you will not know what tire to, like if your tire is punctured and you need to get a new one, you will not know what tire to buy because you don't know what brand of car it is.
You
Literally
just hit the
compatibility.
nail. I like that. I like
Yes, sir.
that illustration you gave. You got to know the brand of car you are so
Yes,
that
sir.
you know the tire that fits your car. Wow, I like that. A lot of us don't know the brand of car we are, so we just go out there and then we see a tire, we like the color, we like the shape, we like the size, we like them big, and then we're not even finding out, is this big tire going to fit into my car? I like that. And so you turn to the left, you have this emotional spark with somebody, and then you want to hook up with them, even when they cannot fit into your kind of car. Until people find out who they are, it is not possible to identify who fits into their life. Self discovery, therefore, is critical to partner recognition. Please go ahead with what you're talking about.
Yes, sir. So, just summarily, that's basically like the idea. So, in self-discovery, we begin to know the structure that would basically fit into that. Because I think many people began to realize that there's a hack when there is, okay, for me, it's also very pertinent because when I was thinking of the whole future thing, I was also thinking of someone who would want to go with my vision. For example, if I'm going to be interested in moving, let's say in the movie, the media space, like I've, been making plans for, if I'm going to be married to someone who has no interest in the media space, there's going to be problem eventually for me because I think the weight of what is coming is really going to have a lot of time consumption. So I would really love a situation where it is something, is one of those things that I can share with my partner. Instead of it taking me away from her, we can actually do it together. So all of the times that I feel that I'm going to spend doing that, instead of doing it alone and then she feels left out, we can actually journey on it together. So it's like knowing myself more begins to tell me all the things I need to know about who I'm supposed to spend the rest of my life with. I think that does a whole lot because when you recognize who you are, you automatically can pick the signal of who would align to you for the long haul. And then since it's a comprehensive package, it sticks longer than just picking one or two points that can actually fade away. So this is comprehensive. You know that this person was a line of best fit. And so when it's looking like things are not aligning properly, you remind yourself that of all the choices, this was actually the best. So if things are not really making a lot of sense right now, it's not because the structure has changed. It's just because these are temporary setbacks that can easily be recalibrated, that can easily be revamped. So that's it, sir.
Wow, that's amazing. I'm looking at some of the comments on the platform. Blessing Paul O'Malley says, identify who you are in order to know who you need. She also says self-discovery is crucial to partner recognition. If there's one of the things we're taking home tonight is the fact that people do not know who they are, number one. Number
Yes, sir.
two, that is why they don't know who they need. Number three, and until you know who you are, you will keep marrying and finding out later that you are with the wrong person. So it's so important that we begin with finding ourselves. Until you find yourself, you cannot find who you need. You can't even recognize them, even if they show up, even if they are just around you. This is so important. And I think that is the beginning of the problem. It is the reason why people keep getting married and later finding out that and you know the funny thing about it, even when they are married already to Nike and they are now falling in love with Ronke and saying, oh, I made a mistake, Ronke is the right person. Give them 5 years down the line. For some, 5 years is much. They will soon discover that Ronke too is not the right person. They probably will soon discover Sade and say, no, it's Sade that's the right person. Statistics show that 50% of first marriages end in divorce. Statistics show that 60% of second marriages end in divorce. Statistics also show that 70% of third marriages end in divorce. So it does appear that the more the reputation of the marital circle, the more the proclivity for divorce. So abandoning Nike and chasing Ronke ain't going to fix it. We must find out what the issues are, be willing to address those issues, and then take the relationship to the next level. I've had a lot of people say that after a major battle, after a major conflict in their relationships, the love just went to another scale, another level, another dimension. There is something we're missing when we fail to fight for our love. It's so important that you fight for your love. Love is worth fighting for. One of the things I'm trying to do in these conversations is to make sure we do not overshoot so that people are not tired of listening to us. And so, in a short time, we're going to summarize for today. We're rounding this up tomorrow. Adenike is my wife. Ronke is my life. I don't want two wives. What do I do? We're going to round up tomorrow, but before we come to a closure, at least for today, I'd like you to begin to cook up your final words because you are just about to give us your final words. Like we said at the introduction of this conversation, in the lifespan of every marriage, the times will come, and it will come again and again and again, when the spark will disappear. The times will come when the emotional connection will not be there. You will wake up several times and not feel love, not feel like you have this spark, this magical feeling that is out of the world. You wake up a lot of the times and not feel like you are in cloud nine. That's going to happen several times. It's important that you know, especially for those of us that are going to get married anytime soon. Knowing this will make a lot of difference. But that's not just the issue. What is interesting about this conversation is the fact that during those times when you no longer feel the connect with your partner, interestingly, life will position around you other people who begin to generate that spark, who begin to make you feel out of the world, who begin to bring the glow again in your heart, who begin to make you feel like you're in cloud nine. And the proclivity, the tendency is to think that you're wasting your time with Nike. You want to chase after Ronke. Keep it in mind that if you do that, the probability is that before long, there will be that emotional disconnect with Ronke and you'll be chasing Shade. Trust me, you don't want to do that. You want to settle down, find out what went wrong, what stopped happening, what can you do to re-engineer that connection. We're going to spend a little more time tomorrow to ask ourselves, go a little deeper on what can we do to reignite the spark instead of just walking away. Profound discussion. All right, ladies and gentlemen, with me on this conversation is Pastor Victor Gabriel Oladija Ayodele, all the way from the city of Abuja, our nation's capital, sharing thoughts with us about this interesting topic. I'm going to ask him to give us his final words for tonight, and then we'll be right back tomorrow. Pastor Victor, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Sarah. So what I'm going to say on a final note is what I always say. Sometimes when we have these conversations, it looks like in trying to deliberate and find out what the root causes of many problems are, we make light the spiritual components, but we don't necessarily do that. And the reason is because God is the only one, of course, God gave us components and fragments of the ability to see the future, but God is the one who is in the future. And so there is a clear understanding of what is possible and what is obtainable. So in seeking God's counsel, we can know automatically that there is safety in being with a certain person. it doesn't necessarily state that the moment we find out what God's counsel is or what God's advice in any regards is, what his standpoint is, it automatically translates to a smooth journey. No. In fact, many a times, that counsel is actually the reason why there is trouble, because it's almost like the assurance that comes from whatever counsel it is makes the devil to come create a lot of drama so that you would, let go. That's basically it. So I feel like the component, one of the major components in this whole process should be God's counsel. We should not trivialize it. So no matter what the permutations and combinations are, we should always revert back to what God's counsel is, because that alone can even be a reason to stay in a situation where everything does not make sense. Like I say all the time, God does not guarantee that the journey will be smooth. He only guarantees that the destination is sure, the destination is certain. And so he said, I know the thoughts I think towards you, thoughts of good and not of evil, to give you an expected end. The end is expected, but the journey might be very tumultuous. There might be a lot of trouble. All you can be assured about is that you arrive safely. Just like the story of Paul, where he was told no life will be lost. But in the vision, there was no specification as to the fact that, okay, I think the vision even came with certain specifications. So they already knew that there's going to be a lot of trouble, but nobody will die. And so that's the same case. God can give you an assurance that makes you to realize that this relationship is going to survive the test of time, but then you have to put in the work. You have to let go of ego, allow God guide you, and at many times say sorry when you're not supposed to say it in the actual sense. So there's a lot of investment that has to go into ensuring that it works out. That's going to be my final words for tonight. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, Pastor Victor is he works with me in the Love Life Institute. He's one of the directors in the Love Life Institute and he's always been there. Pastor Victor, I want to thank you for the thoughts that you've shared and for always being there. Ladies and gentlemen, the Love Life Institute, where I serve as college director, we have a program. It's called the Love Challenge. The Love Challenge is a 20-day program that helps couples whose relationships have gone sour. Relationships, the spark is out, there's nothing making sense in the relationship. You are at the verge of a complete burnout. You're no longer, as a matter of fact, you are thinking of quitting. The Love Challenge is a critical investment that I recommend to people to take advantage of. It has the potential to re-engineer a spark or the spark that can recalibrate, re-engineer, and revive your love life. Take advantage of it. You can drop a message in the DM. You can, get the links for you so that you can participate in it. Of course, the Love Challenge is not the only program that we have, but it is the program that is relevant for this conversation. We have the Clarity Challenge and a couple of other programs. We're going to be right back tomorrow to round up on this conversation. Nike is my wife. Ronke is my life. I don't want two wives. What do I do? Once again, thank you, Pastor Victor. We have a couple of people in the platform with a couple of comments. Esther said, very true, sir, love is not just enough. Sunday O'Malley, thank you so much. And for everybody out there, thank you for being part of this conversation. We'll continue tomorrow and we look forward to more. Pastor Victor, thank you.
Sure. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you so much.
Yes, sir.
This is profound.
Appreciate it.